Are you newer to Dungeons & Dragons and still not super comfortable around combat, or maybe you haven't played it all and you're looking to get into it? Well, you are in the right place. In this video, I'm going to be going over combat, the rules around combat, and how all that works. So let's get started. The first thing that needs to happen in combat is the Dungeon Master needs to establish who is surprised and establish positioning. So the surprise is pretty easy. If one side is hiding, you'll just have them roll stealth checks, which will go up against a perception check from the other party. Those that fail their perception checks are surprised. Then you'll establish positions. The DM should also explain the scene, make sure everyone's aware of what is happening, and then you can roll initiative. Initiative can happen before this. The order isn't super important, but this is how it's laid out, and this is typically how I run it as well. Then after you roll initiative and everyone is in the correct order, the combat will start. Something to note, each round of combat takes about 6 seconds. So if you don't know how rolling initiative works, it's also on that cheat sheet, but you roll a d20, you add your dexterity modifier to it, and then you can add any special abilities that you get from your class or from feats. So like the alert feat would give you a +5 to your initiative. Certain people might roll with advantage as well. Then the combat starts. You start with whoever goes first. Obviously, highest roll goes first. There's a bunch of stuff that you can do. Movement, interaction, action, bonus action, and reactions, which happen kind of on your turn or not on your turn. So on your turn, the first thing you can do is movement. Exactly as it says, change your position as much as desired, whenever desired, up to your max speed. What that means is your movement doesn't all have to happen at once. You can move 5 feet, take your action, move another 5 feet, interact with something, move another 5 feet. You can do that. The movement doesn't matter when you take it. But you can only move up to your movement speed in a single turn. So the next thing is an interaction. This isn't talked about as often, but you can speak with people, simple gestures, short phrases, roughly about 6 seconds worth of communication. You can also interact with an object or perform a simple act. This is typically referred to as a free action, which you also get one of those a turn. So you can draw a weapon, open a door. Note, you cannot sheath one weapon and draw another, because that would be 2 free actions. So if you want to swap weapons in the middle of combat, you have to drop one, pull out the other. Is typically how that's ruled. So moving down into the actions. This is the main thing that you're doing on your turn. This is attacking, casting a spell that has a casting time of 1 action. The only area that it starts getting a little bit confusing is the use an object. When is using an object a free action versus a full action? Sometimes that's just up to the DM's discretion. There's certain things in the rules that we know take an action. Like drinking a potion, there are certain items that to interact with the item or use the item, whether it's a magic item or a wand or something, a lot of the time it will specify if it takes an action or a bonus action. Basically anything complex, anything that's going to take the majority of your attention, I typically rule as an action. So something simple like opening a door, not gonna take an action, but picking a lock, that will take an action. So moving down into a bonus action, this says when granted, because bonus actions are a little bit weird. So a bonus action can be anything like casting a spell. This says it has a casting time of a bonus action, or using a special feature that has a bonus action. The examples given are Bardic Inspiration, Rage, Second Wind. If you have like the dual weapon fighting style, your offhand attack would be a bonus action. Not everyone has a bonus action, so it can be kind of awkward if you don't have anything you can do with your bonus action. It can kind of feel like you're wasting part of your turn, and you kind of are, but you don't need to worry about it too much. Something to note is you only get 1 action and 1 bonus action a turn. It feels weird that you can't supplement an action with a bonus action, but those are the rules. That means you cannot do 2 bonus actions on your turn. Like if you want to cast 2 bonus action spells, you cannot do that. So rules is written, 1 bonus action, 1 action on your turn. Then you have reactions, which operate a little bit differently. This is casting any spell that has a reaction, attacks of opportunity. If you ready an action, the trigger is triggered using your reaction. Doesn't matter if it's your turn or not your turn, you can use a reaction. But also note that enemies can use their reaction on your turn as well. So like attacks of opportunity, that's the most common one. You move away from them, like out of their reach, and they hit you with an attack of opportunity. That happens during your turn. Once their attack's over, you continue taking the rest of your turn. A weird interaction is when you have two spellcasters, you cast a spell, they counterspell your spell, and then you use your reaction to counterspell their counterspell. Yeah, it can get kind of awkward. But anyway, those are what you can do on your turn. Now, what I typically like to encourage people to do, or really not to do, is don't look at your character sheet and these list of things that you can do as a sort of a menu of options. It's Dungeons & Dragons. You can do whatever you want. This is just kind of the framework that they fit into. If you're the Dungeon Master, you should be very familiar with this so that you understand how to balance things. If you're a player, still know how this works, but there's Rule of Cool, which basically means you can put the rules on the back burner, ignore them temporarily to allow someone to do something awesome that doesn't fit into this, which might be something like getting an extra 5 feet of movement speed so that they can do this cool like wall climb thing to jump off of it and jump onto a dragon or something. I don't know. Whatever it is, you can kind of ignore the rules a little bit to allow cool things to happen. And so as a player, I encourage you to think of cool stuff to happen and at least ask the Dungeon Master, even if it doesn't fit into this framework. And if you're a Dungeon Master, consider it. Maybe allow it to happen. Well, that's all I have for this video. If you liked it, I'll be doing some more kind of advanced guides for combat, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss those. Thanks.